In this lesson, we're going to be looking at simplifying algebraic expressions. We need to look at some vocabulary words so that when I use these words in our lessons, you'll understand what they mean. First of all, we need to look at the word term. What is a term? If you look at this algebraic expression right here, you will see that there are a lot of plus and minus signs. Here's a plus sign, a minus sign, a minus sign, a plus sign. What our first thing is a term. A term is when a plus or a minus sign separates an algebraic expression into parts. So each one of these would be a term. So if you look here, how many terms do you see? 6y is a term. 4, which is a positive 4. Look at the sign in front of it. That tells you whether that's going to be positive or negative. We have a negative 3y. We have a negative 5x. And we have a positive 2. So in this expression, there are 5 terms. You can find them by being separated by a plus or minus sign. Next, we have a word called the coefficient. A coefficient is the numerical part of a term that contains a variable. So first you have to be able to locate the terms, which we just did. Of the 5 terms that we just located, which ones have variables? Well, 6y has a variable, a negative 3y has a variable, and negative 5x has a variable. In these 3 terms, the number that's leading the way, the numerical part, is called the coefficient. So in the term 6y, 6 is the coefficient. It is the numerical part. In the term negative 3y, negative 3 is the coefficient. In the term negative 7x, negative 5 is the coefficient. So in this algebraic expression, there are 3 coefficients because there are 3 terms with variables and numbers in front of them. So those are coefficients. And the last word we want to look at is the word constant. What is a constant? A constant is a term without a variable. So back to our 5 terms that we originally identified, 2 of them do not have a variable. The plus 4 did not have a variable, so that is a constant. And the plus 2 at the end did not have a variable, so that is a constant. So when I look at this expression, I see 5 terms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of those terms have coefficients because 3 of those terms have coefficients because 3 of those terms have variables, and those coefficients were 6, negative 3, and negative 5. And the other 2 terms are called constants because they do not contain variables. So terms, coefficients, and variables, and constants. You're going to hear these words as we go through this. Here we have an algebraic expression. Now, to simplify it, you want to look to what we refer to as like terms. Like terms, remember terms, if we looked at this expression, we could identify 3 terms. We have a 4x, and since there is no sign in front of it, we understand it to be a positive 4x. We have a plus 6, remember this is called a constant because it has no variable. And we have the 3rd term. So there's 3 terms up here. We can combine or add together the terms that are what called like terms that have the same variable attached. So up here, I'm going to use the commutative property. This is a step you could do mentally, but I'm going to show you that step. What I'm going to do is I'm going to group together the terms that have the same variables. So here I had a 4x and a positive 2x. Since those are called like terms with the same variable attached, I can combine them. So mentally I put them together. The 6 is a constant. There is no other term that's just a constant, so I cannot combine it with anything. So then I can add these 2 terms together. 4x plus 2x is 6x. We are adding these terms. We are not multiplying. People get confused because they see this and they think that I have to go x times x, which is x squared. But we are not multiplying x times x, we're adding. So when you're adding terms with variables, nothing happens to the variable. It still stays x. You just add together the coefficients. So the answer to this would be 6x plus 6. That's as far as we can go because these are not like terms and we have to stop. Now these begin to get a little more difficult because in the last lesson we learned the distributive property. Anytime you see a set of parentheses and inside that set of parentheses you see two terms. We have the term x with the invisible 1 in front of it, so that's a 1x, and we have a negative 2y. Two terms inside parentheses, and you see a number outside of it that's being multiplied by it. When you see this right here, a little bell should go off on your head. Ooh, I must do the distributive property first. This is what we practiced in our last lesson. So before I can do anything else, I have to do the distributive property. So in the first part, you just can kind of ignore this first term for now. And we're going to do negative 3 times x and negative 3 times negative 2y. Well, negative 3 times x is a negative 3x. And negative 3 times a negative 2y, we have two negatives, and two negatives make a positive 6y. Notice I just brought down the first term. We didn't forget about it. We just didn't do anything with it yet. So I brought down that first term. I have to do the distributive property. Now I have three terms with no parentheses. I look for what we call like terms. What terms have the same variable attached? And I'm going to group them together mentally or on paper. I see that I have two terms that have the y. So I know that I can combine them together. So 6y plus 6y would be 12y. And the negative 3x at the end we cannot combine to it because it's not a like term. So we're finished. 12y minus 3x. If you look at the assignment that we have today, we're going to do the first several together. Here again you see the distributive property like we did yesterday. So to simplify this, you see two terms inside the parentheses, a positive 4x and a negative 13. You see a term outside that's being multiplied, so you know you have to multiply the 5 times both terms inside the parentheses. So first we have 5 times 4x, which is 20x. Then we have 5 times a negative 13. When you're multiplying with one negative, the answer is negative, and that would be 65. These two terms are not like terms, so I cannot combine them, so I am finished. 20x minus 65. Again, you should have a little bell go off on your head saying, whoa, I've got the distributive property right here because I have a set of parentheses with two terms inside and a term outside being multiplied by it. So I have to do the distributive property, multiplying negative 4 times a positive 9x. That would be a negative 36x. And then multiplying a negative 4 times a negative 2. Always look at the signs in front. That tells you whether it's positive or negative. Two negatives make a positive 8. There are no like terms there, so we are finished. We cannot combine anything else together. Okay, here again we have, this is number 3 on your paper. Right here we have the distributive property. So this is the first thing that our eyes should see. We're going to bring the 7x down. We're not going to do anything with it at first, because first we have to do the distributive property with negative 3 times the sum of 5 plus x. So first we have negative 3 times a positive 5, which is negative 15. Then we have negative 3 times x, which is negative 3x. Now at this point we cannot say that we're done, that we're finished, or that it is simplified until we look to see if we have combined all the like terms. Well, we have 3 terms left. We have 7x, a negative 15, and a negative 3x. Two of those have the same variable attached. We have 7x and a negative 3x. So mentally or on paper, you could group those together and say, okay, I can combine 7x minus 3x, and that would be 4x. The negative 15 is a constant. It stands alone. And so here's our final answer. 5x minus 15. I hope this helps you with simplifying algebraic expressions. Remember first to look to see if you can do the distributive property, and then combine any like terms. Good luck.